Hello, I hope you're fine, and I hope that I'm fine too. Today I'm going to bring something a little bit different. I am talking again about extroverted intuition, but I'm going to present to you a series of teasers and puzzles and other sorts of tricks and challenges that you can use to determine whether or not you're more likely to be NE over SI, that is, extroverted intuition higher up in the stack than introverted sensing. If you take to these sorts of challenges and they seem very familiar to you, that's a good sign that you have NE toward the top of your stack. If these sorts of things are not for you, it wouldn't rule out that you still have NE, but it's potentially less likely. Because this, again, called trans-contextual thinking, is something that only 4 personality types tend to do very consistently based on the work of Dario Nardi, and that is the ENTP, INTP, ENFP, and INFP. So the thing that they have in common, of course, is that they're all using NE, and they exhibit this common brain pattern that when they're given this sort of mashup of a problem, that they attack it a certain way, and they sort of get this joy of attacking it and resolve it with potentially different outcomes, but a very similar process. 2 quick addenda. First, if you don't want to have your ontology potentially called into question, you may wish to stop the video now, because we're looking at a particular way of presenting NE that may not be the only way of doing it. So you might hate this whole thing, this whole exercise. You might walk away feeling that you've completely bombed it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not any top stack. It just means that for whatever reason, these particular questions or quizzes did not sit well with you or didn't put your NE on display properly. The second one is, just to let you know, please feel free to stop the video. In fact, I'd say please stop the video at the end of each challenge or between each challenge to sort through your own answers. Take as much time as you want. The idea of this is for you to have fun with it, not to treat it like some sort of a dirge. Take the words pleated shorts. If you transpose the first couple of letters, you end up with the nonsense phrase sheeted plorts. But you can continue on the wordplay and come up with things like ported sheets and sorted sleet and so on and so forth. So what I'd like for you to do is play with the term pleated shorts and expand on it in any way you'd like, but just give it some time for wordplay, a couple of minutes, and just see the sorts of things that you come up with. That's the first challenge. Second challenge. Take the letters A, B, C, D, and E. These are symbolic representations of a family. They represent a mother, a father, an oldest brother, a middle sister, and an infant. Now, take those letters, look through them, and come up with an explanation for which one is which and why. Again, pause, take all the time that you'd like, and when you're ready, move on to the next challenge. The third challenge is for you to describe your extroverted intuition and how you experience it to a theoretical someone else. Now, because extroverted intuition itself is an unconscious function, I would like for you not to use literal ways of explaining how it works, but to rely upon analogy and metaphor and prosaic tools as you have available to you to try and come up with a way of telling someone how this experience within you most closely resembles some other elements so that they can make that comparison through analogy. We're on to the fourth challenge, which I'm calling grinding. take a phrase, some common phrase that you hear frequently, such as "have a nice day," and look at it from kind of the interpersonal experience all the way out to its social and cultural meaning. That is, there are the combination of words that make the phrase, which may mean something different from the phrase itself. And the phrase may be used in different contexts for different purposes, and just sort of work your way through all of the different possibilities of what a phrase such as "have a nice day" is all about, different meanings, different levels. And again, please feel free to pause the video, take all the time you need to consider this. Now we're off to challenge number 5, and that is to take a common object that's somewhere on your desk or around you, maybe not the device that you're viewing with itself, but any sort of other common item around, such as, I don't know, I've got a dish here that holds, I think it had sugar corn pops in it earlier on, but take the dish or whatever object you've got and really examine it and consider its symbolism and its significance to you. That is, use this as a jumping off point to consider all of the possibilities of what this object that you've chosen signifies to you. And that may actually take you off in some uncharted territories, so feel free to pause for as long as you wish. And again, we'll resume when you come back. Challenge number 6, and this is a storytelling challenge, but you can flip it one of two ways. One would be to go to the visualization that you did of the object, let's say this dish, and take all of the things that you thought about, and you can use those as elements to tell yourself a story that includes some degree of fiction to it. That is, feel free to incorporate all of the truthful elements you'd like, but there's some sort of a point or outcome that you're looking to tell with the story. You don't have to make it long, just long enough to have a point. The second piece of it, alternatively, is to consider a story that you tell yourself, or that we tell ourselves, that is fiction, not necessarily true, and to dig around in something that you tell yourself that you know isn't true, and sort of tell yourself this, reveal the story of that to yourself. So either one of those is perfectly legit. I know it's two completely different exercises, but either of them should be interesting, I hope. I've got a bonus challenge for you. This one's a little bit more of a stretch, but I would like for you to visualize an elephant wearing a top hat. So take the time you need, but consider not just the outcome, but the process that you've gone through to the point that you have a visual in your head of an elephant wearing a top hat. And that is the final challenge, and we'll get to an afterword after that. So here's the takeaway from what these different challenges mean. If you stuck through all of this and you had a grand old time, or even if you skipped a couple of them, but you really dwelled on others, or you made your own path to decide, well, this piece isn't interesting, but this other piece is, as long as you were in this flow of different types of ways of bringing in logic and words and visuals and ideas and memory, that's a pretty good sign that you have extroverted intuition. It's not a guarantee that you do, and it's not a guarantee that you don't if you did not. In fact, it's possible that you could bomb a lot of this stuff, but still enjoy it and still have extroverted intuition somewhere. It's less about how well you perceive as doing, and more about how much of an affinity you have for these these categories of challenges. If you thought the whole thing was stupid and pointless, then it may be an indicator that it's less likely that you have extroverted intuition top stack, because these are the sorts of things that are teasers for NE that really that almost draw your NE in to engage in various ways and perform these different mental exercises. So don't take it as an absolutely firm indicator, but these are the sorts of things that if you do them in your day-to-day, if your life is kind of has these sorts of elements in it, then it's pretty likely that you are an extroverted intuitive. If this was an exceptional and weird and awkward thing for you to do, then I would say it is potentially less likely that you are an extroverted intuitive. I would never say no, but they're the sorts of things that kind of go hand in hand. The transcontextual thinking as a correlate to having extroverted intuition as a cognitive function. And with that, I think you've done quite enough, and thank you for your patience. I'm not going to put my own answers in this particular set because it's really not relevant. They're in some cases funny, but not relevant, because your answers are what's most important, and your primary piece isn't even what your answers are, but what your process was and your level of interest was to get there. Those are the things that are going to be more likely to indicate whether or not you have extroverted intuition at or near the top of your stack. Okay, well, a good afternoon, morning, good evening, wherever you may be.